Good evening, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Victory Never Sleeps. I am Witan Brandy, and tonight I am joined with Githia Sheila McNallen. And our episode tonight is about things that go bump in the night. So we are so excited about this episode. This is a great season for all of the spooky and the paranormal and connecting with our Desir and relating to fall, all of the wonderful things that happen. Well, thank you, Githia McNallen, for joining me. How are you tonight?
I am doing well. I have two candles and I did a rune pull a few minutes ago. I'm making it kind of a magical night myself right here, even though it's daylight, but it's going to be fun. I'm really looking forward to this.
Yes, us too. We have a very special thing that we're doing tonight. We had reached out to all of our folk and all of our membership, and we had asked them to submit their spooky stories, either paranormal incidents, contact with their ancestors, moments of revelation, and things of that nature. So we are going to be sharing those stories live on the show tonight. And we also have a very special drawing at the end of the show tonight. You do not have to be present to win, but I'm going to send you my favorite snack for fall that only comes out for fall. And I've already eaten one out of the 10 boxes that I bought. So I have 9 boxes remaining, and one of them is going to go to the winner of the drawing tonight. So I am sacrificing an entire box of something I wait for all year for those of you guys that submitted stories tonight. So we appreciate it. And this is going to be a 2-part episode. So tonight will be our first episode about things that go bump in the night. And our next episode of A Fifth of Brandy, which is going to be on the last Wednesday of October, is going to be part 2. So you still have time to submit more stories about all of those spooky things that have happened to you in your life. So if you do want to submit a story for us to read online, please send an email to vns@runestone.org and we will tell your story on the show. So, couple top of the show things that we want to go over this week or this weekend. There she is. Hey, she made it. You know what? I'm going to save this for Githia Katie Erickson. I'm going to let her talk all about the upcoming event this weekend, Winter Nights. Go ahead, ma'am.
Oh, am I muted?
Nope, you're good.
Oh, I thought I came in muted. I guess I didn't. Sorry. Well, you guys really threw me off guard. I wasn't expecting the exuberant welcome. I have spent the day getting ready. We're packing and getting all the last couple of things in order for Winter Nights in New Hampshire this year. Mr. Ronald Boardman is going to be going to the store tomorrow to pick up all of the food for everybody. And I will only be on the call for a little while because we will be getting in the car and heading out there sometime in the next couple hours. It's always kind of a crazy rush the last couple hours before we leave, trying to figure out exactly what we need and then remembering like 4 different things that we forgot, but never at the same time. We can never remember all 4 things at once. We have to remember them in pieces, you know. But we will be having Winter Nights up in New Hampshire, as you all know. And New Hampshire is really, really beautiful this time of year. And folk builder Ron Boardman is kind enough to let us use his property. And Ron has been Asatru or Theodish for a very long time now. And his property up in New Hampshire has hosted many events for like 20 years now. He's been hosting stuff at his property, so it's just super wonderful, super energetic. And I'm sure if Nick can figure it out before I'm done talking, he can show you a picture or two of his stolly with hosts and maybe his own personal meat hall that he has on his property. We'll be up there. We're going to be doing Matt Alshargo de Flavel will be doing an Odin bloat on Friday. And anybody who's ever been to Alshire Gothic Odin bloat will know that they're some of the best bloats. I personally am always a really big fan. Matt just has a knack for him like no one else does, you know. And then we'll be doing Desir bloat on Saturday. in the evening after it's dark, because I just can't picture doing a Desir bloat when it's not kind of dark and spooky out. I'm sorry, I can't think of anything else to say right at the moment because I wasn't expecting to talk about it. So that's what I got. You should come. It's not too late to show up.
You guys should come. Tickets are still available. You can get those on the website at runestone.org. Nick did have that link up there. So if you do want to go, have any questions, reach out to your folk builder. They'll be able to get you in touch with the people in charge. And I hope you all can go out. It is always a great event. They do a really good job putting on winter nights, and it's always one to remember, that is for sure. And top of the show here, we've got GW Farnsworth donated $25 to VNS and donated $25 to Folk Services. Thank you so much, sir. That is very much appreciated. A couple of other announcements that we have. There's several places to catch us. It doesn't have to be just YouTube. There's several places that you can find us on Odyssey, Twitch, Twitter, Rumble, YouTube, and VK. You can also catch the podcast on Apple, Spotify, iHeartRadio, and Amazon Music. So if you want to listen to us at work, on your drive, while you're doing the laundry, or while you're sitting at a campfire entertaining your children, those are all the places that you can catch us. Also, please be sure that you check your district websites, because that is where all the information about where to find us, where to come to our moots, how to get in contact with us. So go to each one of those websites and get in touch with your local leadership, find out when the events are. And we are very, very excited to announce that Phrasehof is going to be coming to us very soon. Until then, keep an eye on thorshof.com. That's where the events used to live. And we will let you know when they move over. Katie, anything to add?
Yes, I wanted to make a point of, one, that map looks pretty nice with a brand new color on it, I think. But for anybody who might think that they could still make it to Winter Nights, but they're kind of waffling because it's a little bit of a far drive, I want to point out that this will be the very last National Winter Nights to be hosted as a camping event out in the wild, because from now on, any Winter Nights that we will host will be being hosted at a Hof, which is really exciting. So it's kind of like a twofold boast. We got Phrasehof, which everybody knows by now, and if you don't, now you do. And we're super excited about being able to host events and Winter Nights at the Hof. But also, we're both, my husband, Whitney Erickson, and I are both very sad to see kind of the end of an era with the camping Winter Nights that we have been hosting for 14 years now. So if you think you might be able to make it, but you're waffling, just remember this is the last opportunity you have to come to a Winter Nights like the one that we're hosting this year. They'll never be like these again. So you should come. The end.
So speaking of Winter Nights, we have all been at a Winter Night celebration in one location or another, right? So I would like to ask you ladies, what was your favorite Winter Nights bloat or moment in all the years that Winter Nights has been an event? Let's start with Githia McNallen. What was your favorite Winter Nights moment? You're muted, ma'am.
Where's my unmute?
There you go.
Oh, I think, yeah, Nick's handling it, I think. So I'm going to kind of split it a little bit because I want to acknowledge Katie. Katie does beautiful Disa bloats. And she gave us a song that we use every year at ours at Odenshof. We all kind of learned, were tutored under a wonderful lady named Pamela Hall, who did some really unusual things. So it'd be like a drum with the heartbeat of our mothers, of our children, bump, 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 bump. Those are the kind of things that Katie brings into all of her bloats. And so I really do encourage you to come on out. If you can still come. It doesn't matter that it's kind of late in the game. There's always room for more. And I love our bloats at Odenshoff, of course. I've got so many wonderful memories. But for us in the AFA, we started with Winter Nights being the premier event that we were doing for years. We did that from 2005 until 2010, I guess, when we started doing midsummer. And for me, I'm not really a summer person. I have a summer birthday, but I don't like summer. I love fall. And so I'm just going to mention a place that we had that was a truly magical location, and it was over near the coast of California in the Redwoods. It was the kind of place where you know that trolls and elves live there all year round because it was redwood trees with that moist soil that is there all year round and just that earthy smell. And these trails went all over, stone trails, and everybody had little cabins that were log cabins with stone fireplaces. And the whole thing had that kind of a theme to it. And it truly had a really magical feeling as a setting. And the music was great, the food was great, everything just worked together. And we had these wonderful fires the whole time. But that was a location. I love, of course, what we do at Odenshoff. And I do encourage people to come to Odenshoff for our Veteran Night, or what we call Winter Nights is now Veteran Night. We're doing it on the 18th, and ours is going to be a little different because this year I'm doing an Alfar bloat in the morning. So you come early on Saturday, and we're going to have coffee and stuff that equivalent to fika, and we're going to enjoy socializing. We're going to our cemetery and visit the people who are still have life there. You know, they never really go away, and you can talk to them. And so we have three departed who are in our Odenshoff cemetery. We'll go there, and then I'll do an Alfar bloat for our fathers. And we actually are going to do something a little different with it for in a way of an offering that's very different, very masculine compared to what will be the Disa bloat, which will be again at twilight. And I hope that Lauren Anderson will be there to help me with that. And we expect to have a wonderful time. So we have torches, we have bonfires, no matter what time of year. We chant, we drum, we sing songs, all those things. And then the kids have a wonderful time just being Halloween, just wearing costumes, getting candy, playing games. So we make everyone as special as we can, and they're all different. You know, it's really hard to pick one. But anyway, that's kind of my summary of some of the ones in the past and how they've affected me.
Thank you, ma'am. How about you, Githia Katie? What is your favorite Winter Nights bloats or moments?
So honestly, I've never actually attended a Disir bloat or a Winter Nights bloat. I have led every Disir bloat since I became a Githia in training, and I'm thinking, I was pregnant with my son when I went to Winter Nights for the first time, and I had been sick, so I was only there for a small portion of it, and I didn't actually get to do the Disir bloat. And the year after that, I was a student, and Patricia Hall, who was a mentor for me and Sheila both, was like, hey, why don't you guys just do the Disir bloat this time? I'm like, I've been a student for all of about a month and a half. What are you talking about? That was really terrifying, really terrifying. I'm trying to think. So I've never actually just attended a Winter Nights Disir bloat. So I can't say that I have a favorite one that I have attended. But I don't know that I can say that I have a favorite one that I've performed either. Hey, listen. Sorry. Mostly because for me, the most important part about the Disir bloat is that other people walk away having had a good experience. So I guess generally speaking, I can say my favorite part of Disir bloat is knowing that people have been positively affected by them. Like Svan Wittenherul will sometimes talk about how at one of my bloats he had just like a visceral reaction, and It's not I mean, it's a little bit of a pride thing. If we're being honest, we are Aryan men and women. We should have pride in our accomplishments, and when we do good things, we should be proud of them. But so there's a little bit of that. But more than that, I like hearing Svan say it because it means that I managed to do something good for him, and he had that moment. And you never, I don't hear it too often, but I hear it from other people like, oh, so and so said that they really had a good experience, or so and so like was crying because they really felt like they could feel their mother there, and those things are the things that I take away a lot of positivity from, because as a Gilead, especially for a Disir bloat, when we're trying to connect to the ancient mothers, that's the kind of thing you want to hear. So yeah.
So I know I use, and I do believe Katie does as well. Her and I kind of are on the same mindset in regards to using water in ritual. So for my disciplotes, I tend to use water in my ritual, and I like to, instead of a sprig, I like to use a carnation. So I'm going to take the opportunity to tell everybody why I use carnations. Okay. My grandmother, and we'll actually talk about my grandmother during this episode if we have time. But my grandmother, one of her big things when I was a kid was she would take me to the cemetery and we would go to every single one of our ancestors that were buried at that cemetery. Every one. We never missed one and we never missed a year. And for all of the men, she would buy a red carnation for me to put on their tombstones. And for the women, we used white carnations. So that's why I've chosen to use carnations, is because I'm bringing my Disir into that bloat. It's kind of my way of opening that door. But I also like to use water. And I like to use water as, a reminder of the water that you were conceived in and formed in, the water of the womb, but also the tears that your mother has shed for you. Also the sweat that she has poured in your upbringing. So if you think about all of the different things that your mother has done for you, it can all kind of be tied back to water, whether it's the water of the womb, whether it's the sweat on her brow, or whether it's the tears on her cheeks, in good times and bad. So I really like to use water. So if you guys ever wonder, why are you tossing water on me with a carnation? That is why. And also, I just got a text message from my brother, who is a member. Hi. And my nephew is currently eating dinner and watching what he calls the Auntie B show. So I'm going to go ahead and give a shout out to Walker, my wonderful nephew. Hello, gorgeous boy. I hope you're enjoying the Auntie B show and talking to your friends. So special shout out to Walker. So with that, I think we are going to get into our first spooky story. And Githia McNallen, would you be able to read us the first spooky story that was submitted to us tonight?
So I'm ready to go. Am I? Unmute me.
You're good, ma'am.
I'm unmuted. Excellent. So this was presented to us by Shannon, and she starts with this as her story. I was in fourth grade or so, a year or three after my father's chocolate lab died. My family's chocolate lab died from drinking antifreeze my dad had left in an uncovered pan in the garage. We dug her grave as a family, and I watched my father dump her body out of a plastic bag into the hole before covering her with dirt and saying a prayer. I developed a loyal hatred of antifreeze, as only a child can, and pined for the dog off and on. Oh, if only she were still alive, if only I could see her again. I had a fever and was very sick and was sleeping in our basement, which was horribly hot due to the furnace not being connected to any ducts. I managed to fall asleep on a couch, but at some point in the middle of the night and in the pitch of dark, I woke up sweaty, nauseous, and generally uncomfortable. My long dog's snout was inches from my face. Her ghost was standing there perpendicular to the couch and my body, and her head was low as if she were pointing or about to growl. Shocked and terrified, I threw my blankets over my face until it felt like I would suffocate on stale air. And when I peeked out, she was gone, never to be seen again. I stopped pining to see her, knowing I would not be throwing hugs if it happened. I would not be throwing hugs.
That's kind of creepy.
Yes. Oh, lesson about antifreeze, huh?
Right?
Yeah.
So I have heard of that. I had a very, very old chocolate lab, and his name was Colby. And he was very much a part of the family, and he was very loyal and very dedicated. So it's a little bit different than Shannon's. You know, Shannon's, yours is kind of creepy, kind of like yours is like, hey, you know, we won't be hoping to see that dog again. Right? But mine, I could hear him. My bedroom was in the basement, and he always had long fingernails because we had to like literally hold him down to trim his nails, and it was just a disaster. So his nails were a hot mess, right? And you'd be downstairs, and you could hear him walking down the hallway, and it was like click, 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 click on the hardwood floors. Well, after he passed away, you could still hear the click, 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 click. When you go upstairs, there'd be nothing there. You know, so do I believe that, you know, animals have like a soul like we do? No, I don't believe that they have the same kind of soul that we do, but I do believe that they can, you know, still have an energy that floats around. You know, I won't pretend to understand the paranormal. I'm not on that side of the veil. I can only tell you what I've experienced myself, but it's almost like that energy is still there, whether it's the energy we keep there because of our own emotions, you know, or our own minds wanting us to hear those things, you know. So I can relate. I heard Kobe for a long time after he died with that click clack click clack click 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 all over the place. Yeah. Yeah, so do I believe that animals can come back in some form? Yes. I don't think it's actually our animals, though. I think they kind of get absorbed. This is Brandy philosophy here.
Yeah.
I think they get like absorbed, kind of like what's the best thing? Kind of like the like a Vatir, but not necessarily like a conscious being, like we would assume would be like our grandmother or a grandfather. I think it's more of an echo for us than it is an actual returning of the animal or of the spirit of the animal. I think it's more of an echo of things that they did. You know, that's what I personally believe. It's more of an echo. Yeah.
I think a lot of people have had pets revisit. We're a cat family. And I know there have been times where I'm not even one who, the cats don't associate with me. They love my husband, right? But then he really takes good care of them. But I have had just lying in bed and there's that thump, you know, and it's like, doesn't really develop into much more, but it was like, oh, what would cause that? Oh, it feels like a cat, you know, kind of a thing. And I'm sure, I think a lot of people will understand they've had that same thing happen. Or a cat scratching at a door, or as you say, a dog scratching at a door, and you go there and there's nothing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have a hilarious cat story. Do you guys want to hear my hilarious cat story?
Sure.
Oh my goodness. Okay. So I'm one of those people that when things go bump in the night at your house and you get super scared, you know, you call me and you're like, what is this noise that I'm hearing, right? I get a phone call at like 10, 11 o'clock at night, and there's these things, I'm hearing noises, I get up and there's nothing there, and it's just the oddest thing, I can't track it down, and as soon as I start looking, it stops. I was like, okay, well, leave it alone. Let me know if it continues. A week later, Katie, I think, has told this story before. A week later, I get a frantic phone call at 11 o'clock at night. It's still happening all of the time. It happens every single night. I don't know what to do. I need you to come over now. I need like a house cleansing or an exorcism. I need something now. I'm freaking out. Oh my goodness. Okay, so I go over, right? And I'm sitting there in the dark, listening for this noise. And I finally had to tell them, you need to go away. Like, just go away. Let me do this. So I'm listening to this for this noise, and all of a sudden I hear a noise. Sure as heck, I hear a noise. And it's kind of creepy. It's a little odd. So I'm like, what is that? I kind of start stalking around trying to chase it. It got me out of bed in the middle of the night for a cat toy on top of the refrigerator with their cat that was jumping up there and hiding its toys. And it would push the toys back behind the fridge and bat them around. They got me out of bed for a cat. So let that be a lesson to everybody. Yes, we all hear strange noises. We all hear things that go bump in the night. But before you freak out, please make sure it's not your cat, especially if you're going to call for help. We pulled out the refrigerator. There must have been like 15, 20 of those little mice, those squeaky mices stuck behind the fridge. Oh, Sheila, do you have any stories about the Hoff that you would like to share about Odin's Hoff? Anything that comes to mind?
Yes. Dealing with a lot of people who have been there at night experience different things. I never have myself in terms of the building itself. Ritually, yes, sometimes things happen, but so one of the people who is buried in our cemetery is Farron Lasson. She's the wife of Monk. A lot of you know Monk. He goes by Evil Monk. He's really a sweetheart. And she passed away last year, 2024. And we did the memorial for her. I believe it was in June or July. I think maybe July. And she is buried there. Her ashes are there. And he comes out, 3-4 times a year to take care of it and bring her little trinkets and things that he was like little trolls on motorcycles.
To be fair, he does have a story, and he does have a story in our list later on.
Oh, okay. Well, then I'm going to let that one go. But I do know that of recent that there are people who sleep alone sometimes in the Hoff at night. I think one is our own Hoff steward, who relayed that he was sensing somebody in the hall, and fairly recently. And another person, one of our members, said he actually woke up and saw a person in that hall. And other people have seen him around the property, and that is our own Gothi Thorgun Odin, who passed away in July, and we did his memorial on his 78th birthday, 2025 or 2024. But he would be there, he had work to finish. He needed to take care of the place. He loved being in the Hoff. He really was our caretaker there, and he's still there. I mean, there is that sense. It doesn't mean that he's not really connecting with people, but there is that echo, and that echo is a presence that some people actually visually pick up something from him. And so he's still there, but it's a wonderful presence. There's nothing sinister at all. And I think that's something we need to really teach children is everybody makes so much of the spooks and the goblins and the gooks and the ghosts at Halloween, but really those ghosts are our own people, our ancestors, our friends. And we need to also honor them as much as we can. And we can kind of play with Halloween. I think we all do. But no, we really do take winter nights seriously in honoring ancestors.
Absolutely. Katie, before we get into our next story, do you have a story that you would like to share while you're still here?
I have so many stories. Basically, since I was old enough to realize I wasn't Christian and that I wanted to be pagan, I guess I was Wiccan for a while because I was 12. So what did I know? 12 in the 90s, we didn't have a whole lot of information available other than what we could find on GeoCities and angel sites things. I don't even remember what they're called.
I used to make those all the time.
Yeah. I think I might have tried making one once. They were terrible. But that's where I had all my information from. But basically, from that point on, I was very interested in the ghost stuff. I had a very active imagination and I was terrified of everything. The show Are You Afraid of the Dark scared me, like to the point of I would be sitting behind my couch, like peeking over it to watch it, like, oh my God. And because, especially the episodes with ghosts, although the one about the killer car kind of freaked me out too, because there's always a killer car episode on all of those scary shows. But so for the last 25 plus years of my life, I was very into ghost hunting and doing the seance-y stuff and stuff like that. And I had a very close group of friends that we used to do that, or that I used to do that with. And I've experienced a lot of things, but one of the earliest, like most, oh my gosh, this is real kind of moments, because no matter how much you believe it, there's always that one moment where you have that one experience where it's like, holy cow, right? I had a really good friend in high school, Molly, and she was always talking about how her house was really creepy. And from the outside, because I'd been there before, never overnight, but definitely been there before. It was a pretty nice 90s looking, modern looking house, very large. I grew up in a very wealthy area, and it was a very big house that had clearly had additions added onto it. And she used to talk about how she remembers coming downstairs, and it happened to her like 3 separate times, where over by this fireplace in this like sitting area, those like depressed sitting areas that used to be a thing, conversation pits or whatever, they had something very similar to that at the bottom of the stairs that she would come down from her room. And she said she'd come downstairs and she'd see a man hanging from a tree limb right in front of her fireplace. And she said it happened to her like 3 or 4 times, and she used to be really terrified. And it turned out that her house was actually a pretty old house, at least parts of it were. There had been additions, and it had been remodeled to make it look much, much more modern than it was. But in her bedroom, she lived at the end of this really long hallway that was an addition. And it was all the way kind of like everybody. People can actually see my hands. Her room was like all the way down here, and everybody else had bedrooms all the way over here. So she was on the whole opposite side of the house from where the main part of the house was, and everybody else slept, her siblings and stuff. She said her room used to get so cold. It'd be 90 degrees outside, and her room would be like 30 degrees. She'd have, her dragon's breath. You could see her breathing, super cold. And I was like, I know what that means. Ha 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 ha. I was like 17 years old, and I was all excited. And then she invited me and my sister to have a sleepover at her house, and I was so excited. And nothing happened when we were trying to make it happen. So of course I was disappointed. And then we're all sitting there laying in bed trying to go to sleep, and I hear a piano playing. Her parents were out of the house. All of her siblings were older and didn't live at home anymore. It's like 2 a.m, and there's a piano playing downstairs. And then we're sitting there like, do you hear that? And my sister, who wasn't really a believer in this kind of stuff at the time, she's like, there's a fucking piano playing. Pardon my language. But so we're sitting there hearing this piano, and I'm like super excited, but also super terrified, because Are You Afraid of the Dark scared me. So an actual ghost piano downstairs scared the shit out of me. And then I started hearing like conversations, like there was a party going on, like people were like chatting with each other, and wine glasses were clinking, and it sounded like a full-on like party downstairs with the piano playing. And we're all like, all right, I know the parents aren't home because they were out of town. I know none of the siblings were home. None of them lived there anymore. So we all got up, and we, all scared and like huddled together and grabbing onto each other, go walking down the stairs into the room with the fire pit. And we did not see anything. There was no hanging man that night, but the room was like super, super cold. And it was like a warm night out. It was like 75 degrees out. So it wasn't like, but it was really cold. And every once in a while, we were standing there looking around, you'd feel like this just absolute gust of breeze coming from nowhere around your ankles and stuff. And that was my big, holy crap, it's not just my imagination, it's real moment. Because like there were 3 of us there, and I'd say something like, "Do you hear that piano?" My sister would be like, "Do you hear those wine glasses?" And we were all confirming that we were hearing things, but not in the same way. So like, I didn't say anything about the wine glasses clinking. My sister did, and Molly was the one who's like, "Yeah, do you hear them talking?" So like, we were all hearing it, but we weren't all describing. Do you know what I mean? So like, the fact that we were all saying, "I hear this, I hear this, I hear this," and we're all saying different things, but we were all experiencing it, made it really real. Um, Especially because I know my sister is the sort of person who absolutely would have done everything in her power to freak me out as much as possible. Um, so the fact that she was serious and like, wow, this is real, that was an even bigger aha moment. So that's my one big story, I guess, of the many that I have. But yeah.
I'm gonna tell one story, and then I'll read the next one that we had posted. And I'm gonna put the disclaimer because my nephew is watching. I do not condone breaking and entering. My good nephew, do not do what Auntie did. And my brother's watching, and he's gonna be like, "That's why." Okay, so when I was in high school, in junior high, one of the big things that in our town to do was go to like the end of the year fall festival for the Catholic Church, right? The Catholic Church is known to be, it used to be a Catholic school, okay? And they had a convent in the whole school, in the church. This place is known to be extraordinarily haunted, like haunted to the point that paranormal investigators have gone to this building, okay? And the convent was no longer in use because the church had shrunk to such a small size. There was maybe like 3 nuns left, and they all lived in this different building. But the convent across the street was known to be super spooky. So what do we as stupid teenagers do? We broke into the convent. Which I say, we broke into the convent. The window was open. We crawled through a window. We didn't break anything. And it's totally dark. There's no power. But when we're walking through there, they had a confessional set up still. And there's lights on confessionals that tell you when somebody's in the confessional, so you don't barge in and interrupt somebody's confession, right? So we're going there and the lights are flickering red and green. And that was enough for most people. Half of the crew left back out the window. But nope, not Brandy. No, I doubled down, right? So I'm walking through the convent, and it's just super creepy. And all of a sudden it gets pitch black. I mean, can't see your hand in front of your face. Pitch black, right? And there's 3 or 4 kids behind me. And nothing creepy other than the lights flickering on and off. Nothing creepy happened. But I want to demonstrate the overreaction of human beings in dark circumstances where your mind plays tricks on you. Somebody behind me said, "Run." Like something happened to them. And they just went, "Run." So we all ran down a dark hallway, and I'm in the lead, and all of a sudden I come to a door that was locked that I couldn't see. Bam, face first into the door. And then there's 3 or 4 kids behind me. Bam, 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 bam. My face hit that door at least 4 times. Like, we open the door and we leave, and I'm like covered in blood. My nose is like just dripping blood. We had to clean me up so that nobody would know what happened, because I had to go back into the church fair. And if my parents would have seen me, they would have known that I was in the convent. And we're not supposed to be in the convent. But the only thing creepy that happened was the lights, right? The smart kids ran back out the window. The rest of us idiots ran down a dark hallway and face first into a door. So if my brother wonders why I look like I got beat up at that one church fair in like the mid-90s, that's why, bro. All right. I have a lot of silly stories like that. This might be a fun night. You guys might learn a lot about your Witan tonight, okay? Our next submission that we have is from Ryan Harlan. And it reads, "In 2012, my maternal grandfather was diagnosed with an aggressive form of cancer. He had been to regular checkups his entire adult life, but this was somehow missed until it was finally caught. Unfortunately, it was already terminal. In his younger days, he was a strategic air command and probably exposed to numerous forms of radiation at various posts across the country due to this. As he declined, many of us helped my grandmother care for him. It was decided that hospice would be the best choice so that he could live out his final days in the home he built with his wife. On the day he died, it was just my grandfather, grandmother, and one of my younger cousins in the house. Both of my grandparents were sleeping, and my cousin was walking through the house. But when he came to the hallway, which led to the back bedroom where my grandfather was, he saw a man standing in there. He asked the man his business, to which he smiled and said, "I'm here to see your grandfather." My cousin replied that Grandpa was very ill and unable to take visitors, but he would inform our grandmother that someone was there. According to my cousin, that man just smiled and said he would wait. My cousin went and informed Grandma that someone was there, and she replied that wasn't likely. She had locked all the doors before going to sleep, but since my cousin insisted that someone was there, they went looking. Nobody was there. The next day, my grandfather passed away. Grandma questioned my cousin, and after hearing his description of the man, she pulled out an old black and white photo and asked if he could pick out the man in the picture. He pointed to a man kneeling in the front row. My grandmother told him that was his great-grandfather and that he died in 1976. None of us great-grandchildren ever met the man. He died before I was born, and I'm the oldest. The photo was a company mining picture of the day shift at the Argonaut gold mine. This side of my family were miners who came over from Cornwall to work the mines across the West. I spoke to my grandmother about this entire story when she told it to me. I talked to her about our ancestors and about the Filia. It's our firm belief that great-grandpa Charlie came to help his son across to the other side. Oh, that's amazing. That is an amazing story, Ryan. It really, really is. And, you look in our folklore and you will find, the harbingers of death, which are not always bad. There are sometimes that there are stories in the folklore about previous ancestors or even beings that their entire purpose is to show up to announce the death of a loved one and to actually help them across the veil and help them walk the hell road. So thank you, Ryan. That is an amazing story. Anything to add on that, ladies? No? All right.
I'm sure there's stories like that, but I can't recall any. But that was a beautiful story, the way it was done.
Yeah, that's a beautiful. All right. So, Sheila, I know you have kind of a personal story. Would you mind sharing that with us? If not, it's totally okay.
No, it's okay.
I know it's very dear to you, so I'll leave it up to you.
Okay, so are you thinking about the one that was written in the runestone? Okay, yeah. Waiting for my husband's pouring water right now. Anyway, 1993. I decided that was the summer I was going to take myself to the old country being Ireland. And both sides of my family are very Irish, people who came after the famine for the most part. And I made it over there. I found it was really difficult to do genealogy, even though I had birth dates, just because there's so many small parishes and each one has its own records. So I focused on the ancient ones, the deep forebears, those who we cannot name, but know were there. And that's really what I spent my time doing, spending time around stone circles and really powerful places. Beautiful experience for me. I really felt like I was home. I felt totally safe. I would not go back to Ireland like that again, because I would go out in the cemeteries late at night and sit out there and just look at the tombstones and look at the yew trees. The yew trees over there are so different. All that. I was really soaking it in. I came home and felt really good about what I had done. And it was kind of in the early days that Steve and I were together, and he actually, we were producing the runestone together. And I was not particularly well acquainted with Asatru, but I certainly knew my ancestors. And I decided to write a story about my recollections of my ancestors. And my family, both sides, we have very, very long distance between generations. Like my own grandfather was born in 1865 in Germany. I mean, that's my grandfather, right? And both sides of the family are like that. So when I was growing up, I was the youngest of the youngest of the youngest, or people that only have one child, have almost no cousins. But we still had a place to go, and that was to our grandmother's. She lived with her mother and my godmother, all lived next door to us in an old house. And the three ladies seemed so old to me, just so very, very old. And probably my grandmother was in her 60s. But the one thing about her and the other ladies is I just knew that they loved red lipstick and red nail polish. And as Christmas would cover every year, I would take my $1, whatever I had, to go down to Woolworths and start buying presents for them. And I would get red nail polish or red lipstick for my grandmother and my godmother. But for my great grandmother, I would buy a hairnet. And when I bought a hairnet, so she had white hair that she pulled back, and she was already about 90 years old at this time, and maybe even 91. And had really lost her ability. She had aphasia. She couldn't talk. She had a very hard time moving. But she taught me how to do nursery rhymes. She was the one who played the piano. She still did that, played the piano for me so I could learn nursery rhymes. So I had a really nice connection with her, even though she was very old and feeble at that point. And when I would buy these hairnets, being 10 years old or whatever, I get ones with like sequins on them or glitter. It was something that I thought she would like. And so I'd spend my 15 cents or whatever to get the hairnet and wrap it up. And every year we would unwrap these. And so that was the tradition in my family. It's like every year I get these same gifts for these same ladies. I was writing this up and what it was like, because our meals were very formal. It was a very small family, but we had the damask tablecloth and the candles lit and the nice silver and all for Thanksgiving and for Christmas that we had together. And I was just trying to recall all these poignant memories I had with just my brother, my sister, myself as children. And as I was writing this, typing this out on my computer, I was taking laundry out. It was summer, of course. I took laundry out to a clothesline, was putting laundry out there from the washer, coming back and forth. And I happened to see that there was a flat envelope that was on my dryer. It was just a brown envelope. It was really flat, kind of shiny, that shiny kind of waxy brown paper that they used to use. And I thought, oh, it looks to me like maybe seeds were in there. I thought maybe planting flower seeds. And I went back and forth a few times. And finally I came back. I said, I'm going to check and see what it is. And I picked it up and I opened it up. And inside was an envelope like this with a beautiful, looked like was almost hand tinted, hand colored lady with brown hair, kind of 1920s look to her, 1910, 1920s, of this brown hair. And it said real human hairnet on it. And it had the price on it. It was like, I think it was like 19 cents or something like that. And on the front of the envelope, it said Alberts. And I'm thinking, Alberts, what is Alberts? What is this? Because I'd never seen it before. It was my own home. Nobody lived there but me and my kids at that point. I had no idea. And I ended up talking to my sister about it because I realized that this was my connection with my great grandmother, was this hairnet. So it was a real human hairnet in light brown. I got this impression that that was the color of her hair when she was young. And it was perfect. It was in perfect condition. It had never been opened. I opened up that first envelope, and in it was tissue paper. And folded up in the tissue paper was this very delicate brown hairnet made with real human hair. So it all went back in there. It stayed with me. And course, I reported to my brother and my sister, and my brother said, "Oh, you've always had that." I said, "No, I haven't." And then I said to my sister, "What is this Alberts?" And she said, "You remember Alberts? It was the department store in town." And I said, "No, I don't know that." She said, "Oh, it became Macy's. You knew it as Macy's." So this was definitely something that had made its way across through the veil to me at a time when I was trying to connect with these ladies and honor them, even though they were quirky in their own way, and our holidays were weird. They were still my kin. They were my blood kin. And I was honoring them with this story about them. And I got this beautiful gift. I would even take this when I was a teacher, at Halloween time. One thing I did is I dressed up like a little old lady I'd named Miss Biddy. She looks just like me today, with the hat and the gray hair and everything. But I would tell the kids about this, and I actually passed it around and said, "I do not know where this came from, but it came to me as a gift." So it was actually written up in a rune stone, probably back in 1994 or 5, something like that, where I wrote up. It's called the hairnet, but spelled H-E-I-R, because it was a hairnet from who is my heir, or I'm the heir to it. So, and I don't know where it is now. I keep looking. Someday I will find it, because I never would have thrown it out. But over time, it looked like it was absolutely brand new. It had never been opened. And over time, it faded. It kind of wore, the envelope wore, the bag it was in, all of that. And it changed over time, but it had been timeless up until that time it arrived to me. So that was the best gift I've ever received, a very tangible thing. So that's my story.
It's a really great story, Sheila, and I've heard it before, but that's so special to have something that and you just know. You don't even, there doesn't even have to be any kind of proof. You just know. Like when we have things that are connected from our ancestors, sometimes as Githias, we'll get a message about, "Hey, I saw this and I think it's a sign," or, "This happened and I think it's a sign." When you have things like that happen and you can connect them to your ancestors, you don't have to ask yourself if it's a sign, right? Like, Yeah.
Candles right now in candle holders, just like we would have had on those tables. I just realized that there's a reason I have these. I probably purchased them, but it takes me back to that. There we go. Meant to be.
Yeah. We do have a question. What's the AFA belief of sleep paralysis entities? There's a story in the Heimskringla that reminded me of a sleep paralysis episode. Yes. So Witan Svan is going to kill me for my pronunciation. So I apologize. I'm trying, but I believe it's, if Svan is in the chat, please give us a sound out way to sound this out, but it's the mare, the mara. Yeah, Katie's shaking her head. Yes, I'm close. And what that is, that's one name for them. The other, in the German folklore, I believe they're called the Alps. And if Gothi Stam is in the chat, correct me if I'm wrong in the chat. And both of those entities were known to attack you in your sleep, but not like thrash but like sit on you. Like they would sit on you and you would feel like you're suffocating. So what is the AFA belief in that? I don't think the AFA has a specific stance on that, but sleep paralysis can be two things. It can be a medical condition, or it can be something like that. And again, I'm on this side of the veil. I'm not going to pretend that I have knowledge from the other side of the veil, but do I believe that these kind of things are real? Yes. Do I believe that they're common? No. If you do suffer from sleep paralysis, couple things that I would highly recommend for you. First of all, see a doctor. Don't discount medical conditions that can be life-threatening and dangerous. But second of all, commune with your Desir. There is nothing that will protect you harder and better than your Disir. Nobody will love you more than your Disir. Nobody will fight harder for you than your Disir. When I have things of that nature, when I am scared, when things go bump that scare me, which, mind you, there's not a lot of things that scare me anymore that go bump in the night. It's more along the lines, if you make me get out of bed and find out what's going on, the pots and pans are going to be banging. I'm going to chase you out and wake up the whole neighborhood. Don't mess with me tonight. I'm not in the mood, right? Mr. Monk and I talk about that quite a bit. It's more along the lines of, I don't want to be irritated right now, don't, right? But there are still things that happen that will send the chills up my spine or that will legitimately scare me. When I'm legitimately afraid, I call upon my Disir. I know a lot of people are like, hey, we can call upon the gods or the Vatir or this. I call upon my Disir. There is nobody more ferocious in the universal powers when it comes to my protection than my grandmothers. They were fierce in life and they are fierce in death. And if we have time, I will tell the story of the lady in the blue dress. That is a very interesting one. I think the Githias have heard that one. The Githias have heard it. But when I say there is nobody more fierce than your Disir when it comes to your protection, whether it be physical or spiritual, emotional, mental, I'm not joking. Not joking. I'll call on my Disir for protection and support before I'll call on Thor. That's real. You know, my grandmother is spiritually invested in me. I am her bloodline. I am her pride. I am her name continued on in the legacy of the family. You know, so when things like that happen, I call upon the Disir. We used to have what was called monster spray. I am 40 something. We're not going to be exact, but I'm 40 something. I still make monster spray. My kids will still ask for monster spray, right? It's lavender water. You know, it's something to empower them. And again, when I talked about water being important with our Disir, you know, the water is the vessel for for the love of the Disir. And we put lavender in it. You know, monster spray. When you get scared, spray it. If there's something in the dark corner, spray it. You take control. Even as a child, teach your children to take control of the situation. Call upon your Disir, take control of the situation. So, yes, I hope that answered your question. I kind of went off on a couple different rabbit holes. We're going to have a whole prairie dog farm of like loops and stuff if we're not careful. We all know I'm good for that, right? All right. And Katie and Sheila, do you guys have any thoughts on the sleep paralysis or the things that go bump in the night when you're sleeping? Have you had any experiences with that? Your kids have any experiences with that? Any recommendations that you have for those kinds of things?
So I've never personally had any experiences with sleep sleep paralysis or things that might cause it, but one of my very good friends for a very long time, and the woman that I used to do the most amount of, like, we called it spooky stuff with, did have issues with sleep paralysis. And because we were silly and maybe sometimes foolish, and we actively invited things to come and harass us, they did sometimes come and harass us. She had, and you know, I'm obviously a full firm believer in this kind of stuff, and I like Brandy said, sometimes it is a medical issue, and you should always approach all of these things with a level of
Reason. Logic. Reason.
Yes, thank you. Even though I am a firm believer, when something is happening, I always look for a logical conclusion or a logical solution to the problem before I immediately jump to, it's a ghost. Although sometimes, you know, instincts are what they are, and sometimes you just kind of know. But we invited stuff in all the time on purpose because we liked to fuck with it, and they pardon my language, would occasionally, we would FAFO, for lack of a better phrase, you know? Never in any kind of bad way, but she had a very negative experience with sleep paralysis with a creature of some sort. She explained it looking like a very tall man, all dressed in black with like one of those like black Puritan hats. That would, when it wasn't bothering her at night, it would often be in doorways. And I slept at her house a couple times, or often. I'd go. I lived far away from her, so I'd go spend the weekend at her house, and I'd sleep on her couch. And there were a couple of times where I definitely kind of saw something tall and black standing in the doorway, but you know, monster spray sounds like a great idea. No, my son is super scared of a lot of things right now. Every time the wind blows the shower curtain, because you know it's hot there and cold there, and it creates, you know, drafts, and he moves and doesn't realize he's touched the curtain. He's like, "Mommy, come here!" Because you know, obviously the shower curtain didn't move because he, you know, there was a little gust of wind. It had to have been a ghost, and I like the monster spray idea. I think I'm going to try it out and see if that works. But as far as like, I know for a while when I lived out in Glen Rock, Pennsylvania, which is in like southern York County, it was a very old house, and I would wake up every night around like 3:34, I think it was, same time every single night for months, and there was a old lady, she wasn't too old, but a woman standing at the end of my bed staring at me. And like, I don't know how to describe this to people when you can like see things but not really see them. You're not seeing them with your eyeballs. I've never actually seen a full-on ghost with my eyeballs, but I have full-on seen them. Like, it's just like it's a picture that flashes in your head almost like you're seeing it with your eye, you know? I would see her there every night for months, and I'm not really sure why she was there. She wasn't trying to hurt me. I never got any kind of negative feeling. Certainly creepy to wake up in my nice, sorry, I just painted my nails while we were on this call. So if you see me scratching my head with a pen, it's because I painted my nails. Because if I'm sitting here, I can do little things while I would have had to paint my nails, you know, in the car or at Ron's house on Thursday, and I would have run out of time, so I did it now. Sorry, don't talk in a straight line. Anyways, yeah, I forgot where I was going with that. That lady was creepy. I feel like there was something else I was going to say, but I completely forget. So yeah, I think it's the Mare, by the way. I don't remember it being. I think it's the Mare, but I'm probably wrong. But I have heard of I've heard of them before.
Yeah, that and the elk are pretty much the same thing. They're just different names for it.
Yeah.
I'm more familiar with elk than I am with again, Wit and Spun would give us the proper pronunciation of that. I apologize. I'm working on it. I promise. I'm trying.
I'm not going to judge. You've heard me try to say stuff. Two quick things. I have used I see in the chat, I have absolutely used nail stickers before, and I love them to pieces. I just don't have any right now. And also, I'm sorry, this is completely unrelated, but there was a conversation in the chats earlier about carving. And I know that Nick gave my email. I often carve both horns and wood with Dremels, so it was primal. If you ever have any questions or want tips or whatever about how to carve with a Dremel, feel free to reach out to the email address, because I'm a nerd and I like talking about that kind of stuff. So I wanted to say that before I forgot.
Get the area friends with common interests, email her. Right? All right. So we are going to go over. Oh, go ahead, Sheila.
I don't know how to not make faces.
So a story that goes along with a presence in a house. Probably about 20 years ago or so, we had an old house in the town of Grass Valley, It was associated with one of the big mines, the Empire Mine there, and was supposedly built for one of the mine managers at the very edge of the mine. So it was really an interesting place with a basement and the whole thing. And my kids lived there with their dad during their teen years, finished high school there and all that. And I was over there the very last night before we changed ownership to someone else. We were there and we did a walkthrough and we talked about things. And I have to say that I had an impression before of somebody in a doorway, some kind of a spirit. I thought it was probably an older man. It was nothing bad, but I'm curious if other people can explain this because I went through the house and was taking pictures of all the rooms. And the one thing that came out in lots of them was the spiky white, look a lot almost like spider legs and white. And they'd come out of the corners out of different angles in a bunch of those pictures. And I felt, yeah, if there was ever a haunted house I lived in, that was it. And it's not that it was bad haunting, but it had spirits because it had been built in probably the 1850s, which is very old for California. So I'm curious if anybody can explain that with a logical answer. Do you know if anything, Brandy, why it would do that? Okay, you tell me.
All right. So I am along the lines of with Katie, where I am always going to look for a logical explanation before I jump to supernatural. But in the event that there is not a logical explanation, I will assume that it is supernatural. Okay. So I have the belief. So most of us, our homes are made out of what? Rock, brick, wood, right? Yep. Okay. All of those things are natural materials. Natural materials absorb energy. Natural materials are energy. So our homes will absorb what we put into it. You'll see this a lot in homes that have murders, assaults, abuse, traumatic instances. The walls will absorb that. The house will absorb that. Your floor will absorb that. I'm talking from my personal experience, my personal belief. Okay. Things that happen in that house stay in that house, and that's what produces echoes. That's what produces some of the things you catch out of the corner of your eye. The house may not necessarily be haunted. The house might be energetically dirty, right? Because you absorb the house, everything will absorb everything, right? Just like the reason we can see my altar across the room is because of light reflecting, right? If it was completely dark, we can't see it. Absence of light, absence of sight, right? I feel like energy is the same thing. I feel like your house will absorb that. You will absorb that. So it could be built up energy that's showing itself when the lights are flashing, right? There are people, my son's home. There are people that, paranormal investigators will actually take specific kinds of cameras, use specific types of light to make those things appear. Is it a trick of camera? I don't know. I'm not a scientist. I think it's neat. But I think that some of the things that we see in pictures is energetic. Whether it is energy of a person, a deceased person, whether it is just an echo of things that have happened, whether it is a reflection of yourself. There is one picture of Matt that I absolutely love of him doing a bloat. And there's this huge green thing, blue, and it's ginormous. And I don't know if Nick is able to find that picture. I don't know if he's got a stash somewhere because it's a good one where you can just see a huge energy. Is it possible that that is absolutely just a trick of the light reflecting off of the fire and through the camera? Absolutely. It's absolutely possible and very highly logical. Do I also think that it is possible that that is a reflection of the Alshira Gothic energy during that bloat? Yes, I do. I'm not sure if I answered your question, Sheila. So yes, can it be a trick of light and camera? Yes. Could it be the energy of the house itself? As I'm touching my walls, like you guys can see me touch my wall, right? Yes. Could it be a spirit? Yes. Which one is it? I don't know. But it could be any of those things. So use your gut instinct on that. If a house feels gross when you walk into it, and I think we've all kind of experienced that at least once in our life, right? Where we go into a house, that house can be pristine, absolutely spotless. Everything's in its place, and it feels so gross. Like you walk in and it feels like you've been hit with a ton of bricks. The house absorbs the energy. When we talk in the ladies group, I've talked about this before. When you move into a new place, you clean the house, like top to bottom. And it's not just the dirt and germs and other people's yuck you're taking away. You're taking away the energy. You are wiping the walls clean. You are saying, okay, you don't belong here anymore. This is my space now, right? I claim this. This is mine. You got to go. You're not welcome here. A lot of people forget that step, and a lot of people will hear things and see things and they're like, I have no idea what this is. This house is gross. That's why. Go ahead, Sheila. I think you're muted, Sheila. There we go. There we go.
Yeah, thinking about land taking, which we do. It's one of our rituals that we offer to people. Go to the corners with a flame and bless the place and sanctify it and protect it. But we don't do it in any kind of official way with moving in houses. I mean, that I can think of, but obviously you do. I've not really thought about this, and it's something that I can see I need to and prepare for it, to be ready to somebody ask me for that. It's a good thing to do, right? So could you just go through and tell us what it would be like if you went, somebody said, can you come? I'm moving into a new house. I would like to have it clean. Tell us what that might look like.
There we go. This is going to be the Brandy version. And I've actually done this for some of our members. I will tailor it to the folk, right? So if it's a family, I like to do a bloat, right? And do an exchange of gifts. But I also like to do a couple other things. I like to have a bowl of water. And I like to have the family put their hands in that water and then wash over their hands and basically infuse that water with their energy, And this is following the bloat. Like we're going to do a gift exchange, right? But I also want them to take responsibility for their home. One of the things I like to really stress for the folk is don't beg of the gods what you could do for yourself, right? So when we're claiming that land as of your own, you go to the properties and, you can, hail the gods and take that land. Absolutely claim that land. But when you're making the house, introducing yourself to the home, there's a couple other things that you can do on top of that. I have the family not wash their hands, but like infuse it with the water and put their energy into that water. And I actually have the woman of the house take that in every dark nook and cranny. We're putting water. This is my home. I am the woman of the hearth. This is my energy. This is my home. I own this. This is mine. Take charge of it. Control it before it controls you. I also usually bring a candle, a large pillar candle, and we'll talk ahead of time if there wants to, any, runes that want to be carved in it or anything like that. But if there's children, I'll have the children carry a gift for the house fatir that come with the house, right? Here's some incense. Make sure you gift them from time to time so they don't act silly. Have the children present the gift, bring it to each room. But the big important thing that I think is really important is I have the man take the candle. The man is the power of the family, right? It is his force that moves the family forward. It is his land, his domain. So where there is darkness, that man will bring light. So he takes that candle and literally, like, we'll open every closet door. He is the light of this house. He is the strength of this house, right? This is who this is. And the man and the woman in the family take ownership of that home, that energy. This is their space. This is for them and their ancestors. I also have them keep that candle. And whenever there's strife in the home, I ask them to light it. Light that candle. Okay? Bring the light back when it's dark. Because remember what I said earlier about your house absorbing what you put into it, right? Right? We want to shine that light and remember that moment when we were happy, when we were peaceful, when we were doing something together in love, in frith, and in unity, to drown out the other stuff that you're putting in. You know, if you need another candle, if you have to burn that thing a lot, burn it a lot. I'll make you another one, you know. But one of the things I would tell the man and the woman is when you're mad at each other and you don't know how to say it, when you don't have the ability to say, you have hurt me, or you have angered me, you have upset me or disappointed me, and you don't have the words to say that or initiate the conversation, rather than sitting there and pouting or holding a grudge or acting a fool because your feelings are hurt when all you have to do is communicate, go light the candle. Let that be a warning flag for the other member that something's not right. Right? Kind of serves two purposes. Stop the strife in the home before the strife ruins the home. I don't know if that answered your question or not, Sheila, but those are like the little additions that I do for land takings and like home blessings and things like that.
Not the same one.
Did you have anything to add on that?
My husband is up here packing his stuff, and he said, light the candle to let the other know you're upset. He said, it's light the beacon.
It's the bat signal. It's like calling Batman. It's like, Houston, we got a problem. There's a light on.
That's nerdy, but that ain't the level of nerd he was talking.
No. I think he was like letting the Rohirrim know it's time to go to war, kind of lighting the beacon. But I don't know. Yeah, he says that's exactly it. As far as I don't know if you were talking to me or just Sheila, so I'm sorry for just jumping in there because
that's okay.
I was a little distracted. But one of the very first ritual we ever do when we open a new hof, not necessarily on the property, but definitely in the building, is the dedication, and the dedication is literally the taking of the building, the stripping of all the previous energy and everything else that's there, and removing it and making way for creating that sacred space that is Odin's Hof and Njord's Hof and Baldur's Hof.
A permanent sequence.
Yes.
Yep.
And then we are always like, we may not need to do a hammer hallowing every single time we do bloat in a Hof, but every time we do bloat in that Hof, we're building upon the positive energy that we started when we did that dedication. So I'm a big fan of the idea of doing a house taking or a land taking when you take possession of a property. You can ask my husband. One of the things I keep saying is like, we cannot have dedication until I have done a deep clean of the entire Hof. Now, I'm perfectly happy to let other people help me do a deep clean of the Hof. In fact, I would appreciate the help, but I know that I am at the very least going to scrub every wall, wash every floor. I'm going to get inside every one of those cabinets at some point. We took down the drop ceiling in the community room because it was only half there and it was just really in bad shape. So it was easier to just take it down. So now we're going to go clean up in all those rafters. They're not called, what are they? The rafters. Not actually rafters.
Nooks and crannies.
All the nooks and crannies. They have to be scrubbed. I'm gonna get a carpet cleaner and I'm gonna clean the carpet in the sanctuary, because I truly believe that the very first thing you need to do in order to clean a space is physically clean it.
Yes.
Because it is an act, a physical act, an outward act of cleaning, but when you're doing that, there's also an energetic cleaning that is happening, because the intention is, I'm going to clean the space, I'm going to make it clean, I'm going to make it fresh, I'm going to make it mine. That's a thing. When you move into a new place and you're cleaning it, you're getting to know the space. That's super important to me. Like, this is my space. We moved into this house, we got the keys, and they had still been working on it right up until the day that we got the keys. And we knew they were going to be doing that, but they said they were going to have somebody come in and do a clean, like just clean up after them, and so I went in there and they hadn't done a thing. There was still paint stuff everywhere, and there was like, I don't know what they were doing, but there was like this white dust everywhere.
I can relate. We had a 4-year-old milk sitting on the counter when we went to Baldershoff. I can relate.
I know you can, but so just, I spent 2 days. I scrubbed every wall. I scrubbed all the floors. I got into every cabinet, and it sucked, because I don't think I slept for like 2 days, but I got it done, because that was me introducing myself to the house, that was me introducing myself to the Vatir, the property, like the house Vatir and the land Vatir, because we did some stuff. Well, we didn't do a lot outside. It was like January 2nd or something like that. It was in Erie, Pennsylvania.
Yeah, so it was cold. It was really frozen that year.
Yeah, it was a very cold winter that year when we moved in. So we just, but that's part of it, getting to know. And we have other things, like there's old superstitions that exist out in, so there's this one book, and I'm sorry I don't remember the author's name off the top of my head, but it's called The Yule Tompt. And it's a story about this old grumpy Yule Tompt who, does stuff. I don't know. And one of the things that they mention in this story, and it's a children's story, is that it's bad luck to leave a clock unwound in your house. And this is an old Scandinavian story. They also have one about the Midsummer Tompt, and they're both very cute, and my son loves them. But that's an actual superstition that they have. And it's not a new superstition. It's an old superstition. So we do have a pendulum clock, or what are they called? A grandfather clock that actually you have to wind every day. So we make a point of trying to make sure we always keep that wound. Always have the clock working, because apparently they really don't like it when you do that. They don't like untidy houses. So we keep our house tidy, and we make offerings to the Yule White. So we have, when we got married, Witan Svan gave me and my husband this bell as a wedding gift. It's an old wrought iron bell. I don't know if it's old, but it's a dragon, like a dragon with a bell on it. And every night before bed, we all do a group hug, because the kids want to do a group hug. And then we each go over and we hail the house white and ring the bell. And that's our way of saying, like, we have, and then once a week, sometimes more, we leave an offering for the Yule White in a bowl that we have on our altar. And for the kids, they might, like, Owen has turned it into a rhyme. House white, full of might, please help keep the monsters out tonight, or something like that. He changes what he wants every so often, but sometimes it's the nightmares. Please help keep the nightmares away. Or then we say, hail the Yule White, and he rings the bell, and we each take a turn. And I always say, thank you for being a part of our family. And on, like, this week, I haven't been doing much in the house because I've been super busy with us, unrelated to the AFA stuff, and now getting ready for winter nights. And I cleaned my house for the first time in like 2 weeks, and that mop bucket water was nasty. So when I ring the bell before to bed tonight, I'm going to say, house white, thank you for being patient with me while we're busy and I couldn't keep the house clean. And the reason why I'm bringing all this up is I know it's not really related to doing a house blessing necessarily, but these are the things that we do in our house to help build and keep a relationship with our house Vatir. And that's really important, because while negative energy can come from a lot of places, I firmly believe that our house Vatir are invested in the house. And when we are unhappy, they are unhappy. And when we don't treat our house well, they don't treat us well. I personally have experienced things going wrong in all the stupidest, littlest ways. I don't always get there right away. Sometimes it takes me a minute or two to realize, like, oh, I just realized we haven't rung the bell in like a week. We haven't thanked him for being a part of our family in like a week. We better remember to start ringing that bell again. But when we are on top of it, which is most of the time, our House of A tier goes out of his way, I believe, goes out of his way to help build the joy of the house, because he's invested in it. It's his house too. So if you can do a land taking, do the land taking or the house taking, and it doesn't have to be anything fancy. I'm a big fan of sage. I know that a lot of our folk are like, sage isn't ours. We should use stuff that's native to the Vikings, but I don't live in Scandinavia. I live here, and I think our Viking ancestors would have been perfectly happy to use sage if they'd come across it, because they were just like, yoink, that's ours now. Kind of what they did, right? So I use sage, and I'll walk around, and very Wiccan-y in some ways, I suppose, but you smudge the house, and maybe you gulder some runes, or you do what you got to do. But I lost my finger.
I burn a lot of lavender. I burn a lot of rosemary.
Mm-hmm.
Rosemary and cedar are my go-to, and a lot of lavender. If I'm working with my Desir roses, I'm a big fan of burning stuff. I'm taking it around. I do it as an offering. I do it as a cleansing thing. My go-tos. Your go-to is sage. I like cedar a lot. Cedar's got really good things, and I really love rosemary. I use rosemary for a lot of stuff. I use rosemary bundles for nightmares. I use rosemary, sachets for gifts for housewarming gifts, or hide them in my kids' car for little trinkets of protection. Here's a little offering, keep my kids safe on the road, wink wink, nudge nudge, watch out for it. I'm a big fan of the rosemary, I guess. And like I said, if I'm working with my Desir roses, but I don't know, I kind of like to start things on fire and clean with the smoke. Again, if my nephew is watching, don't start things on fire, young man.
No, that's the best thing. I have the favorite uncle, because I teach them how to use a lighter and smack the flame and put it out with your bare hand.
Nick, stay away from my nephew.
My sister told me the same thing.
All right, let's go over to another story. Sheila, would you be able to read? I don't know how to say the name properly. It's number 3. Nahua?
He's in her district. I don't know.
Uses another name. Yeah, there we go.
Yeah, number 3.
Right. Yeah. Here we go. There we go. Way down here. All righty. Let me grab. So, Noah says, think I'm going to miss the show tonight, but I've got a spooky story. Not much of a ghost story, though. One Halloween a few years ago was a full moon. I had to walk to the store to get a new keyboard to write up an essay, and I lived out in the boonies, so it was a 3-hour walk. Saw hundreds of kids walking down the highway in a straight line like some sort of procession. Well, on the 3-hour walk back, it was right at midnight. Check the time later when I got home. When I got to a lonely crossroads out in the desert with just a single light. Crossed the street diagonally, and as I was in the exact middle of the crossroads, I heard every dog, coyote, and who knows what else howling up at the moon. Every dog for miles around, as far as I could hear, even further down into town, went on for a few minutes. And I froze and looked around to listen to it, almost expected something to walk down the crossroads toward me. But nothing came, and the howling died down as quickly as it started.
Oh. Okay, I am a really, really big, firm believer that cats, canines, felines, birds, I don't know about fish. I don't think fish care. I don't know what kind of, hauntings are happening in the ocean. I'm not there. I'm not an ocean girl. I'm a prairie githia, okay? But I don't know about the oceans, but like the coyotes, that's a thing. Like I'll sit out at the farm and they just go crazy. And yeah, they're probably just killed something and eating, but like when you have like the synchronized freak out of animals, like I'm a firm believer they can sense things that we can't see. I'll watch my cat just stare off into space and I'm just like, ooh, who's here? Did they knock first, kitty? And maybe it's a bug. Logic would say she sees a bug or she had too much catnip. But, I watch her just watch things. And I'm just like, oh, what's here? Do I need to get out the pots and pans? That's an inside joke, by the way. The pots and pans. It's kind of a joke, but it's kind of serious. If things are in my house and I get super upset, I have been known to dent my pots and pans with spoons and slamming them together and telling, some people will ring a bell because that's proper. Some people will use gongs or bowls or whatever things that have notes. Some people will use tuning forks. Not me. I'm impatient. I don't have time to go over and get those nice, beautiful sounding things. I just get the pots and pans and bang them together, chase things out of the house, get out my house. I have dented metal bowls, because I'll beat on bowls and stuff like that. It works on ghosts and kids, by the way. If you can't get your children up, bang some pots and pans at 6 o'clock in the morning. They'll wake up, I promise. Yeah.
It's funny. One of our Yuletide traditions at the end of the year, on Mother's Night, actually, we take pots and pans, and that's the first thing that's our first ritual of the year for Yuletide is we turn off all the lights in the house and we leave a candle in every room, and the kids get pots and pans and they lead the way into every room banging pots and pans, and we kind of chase everything out of the house from top to bottom and out the door. Mm-hmm. And that's one of our big things that we do. Of course, the kids are usually too scared and kind of end up hiding behind us more than in front of us, but we're getting there.
Right. Funny story. I'm going to share this story because it's going to be kind of relevant to one of my ghost stories, and then I'll go to another ghost story. I told you guys, I've got a lot of ghost stories. This is kind of a jam. It was New Year's Eve. It was a couple years before my grandparents were killed. We were at my grandparents' house for New Year's Eve, and my grandparents liked Rainier beer. They liked to drink it in large quantities. And when you went to their house, they expected you to sit in the kitchen with them and drink beer with them. And most of us went to bed. Me and my cousins that were staying over, we went to bed. My mom went to bed. My grandma went to bed. Not my dad and my grandpa, though. Nope. They rang in the new year, and they got pretty deep in those cans. And they got my grandmother's bowls out, her mixing bowls, and her spoons. And they went in every room in the house at midnight and woke everybody up, banging on them and stuff like that. Woke up everybody. Oh, my grandma was mad. Oh, she was mad. First of all, they woke her up. Okay. She was fierce to begin with. They woke her up at midnight. Second of all, they put dents in her good mixing bowls. Put dents in them because they were beating them so hard, So they got in a lot of trouble for that. But I tell that story to tell this story. When I was 16, my grandparents were killed very, very brutally in their home. And we went back, we went through the whole funeral process and all of that. We went back to North Dakota. And the first night that we were home, I went to bed and I was asleep. I know I was sleeping. And I felt somebody sit on my bed. I assumed it was my mom. My mom was pretty traumatized. It would not have surprised me one bit if my mom had come down and sat on my bed. But I woke up because I could feel my bed move. And when I woke up, my grandmother was sitting on my bed. And I'm not talking about like I was dreaming. I felt the bed move. That's what woke me up. And when I woke up, she was sitting there. It wasn't like this ethereal spirit being. It was a woman sitting on my bed physically there. And she told me that she came by to say goodbye and that she was going to go now, but that she's not actually gone. And that was her way of showing me she can come back anytime she needed to. Right? The same night. And I would have never, you could have chalked that up to a dream, to a grieving granddaughter, because we were very close, however you want that. But the same night, my dad saw my grandpa upstairs in their bedroom. Same night. So they were making their rounds. Very interesting thing. The summer that they were killed in 1997. That year, there were 2 hurricanes. You know, when hurricane season's every year, right? But that year, there was Hurricane Bonnie. And behind Hurricane Bonnie was Hurricane Charlie. And those were my grandparents' names. And we were all making jokes that they were on vacation and my grandpa was chasing her through the Caribbean, you know. But it's things like that that kind of make you go, yeah, I get it. I know you're still here. I get it, you know. Yeah. But yeah, tropical storms, Charlie and Bonnie. Go ahead, Sheila.
Story just said really interesting, a nighttime story, out walking at night. We've all had experiences, you know, and that kind of thing, but also the idea of the crossroads, and he was diagonally in the middle of the crossroads at midnight. You know, it makes for a great story. And then what's this with the 300 kids in a line along a highway or something? That was pretty strange. I suppose it could be a church maybe, but still. But yeah, other people there, you know, you might want to come up with your own story about a nighttime adventure. I know that a person we know, a lady we all know, has a really interesting story about something happened as they were driving and crossing a bridge one night in California. And maybe we'll hear about that sometime.
We should have that submitted for our part 2.
Yes, we will.
I think we should.
Yeah, I will ask for that.
All right. I am going to read our next story, and our next story comes from Wayland. And it says, recently an invitation was given to submit ghost stories about ancestral visitations, etc. I have a brief story about when my Aunt Terry, my mother's sister, died. This was in 1998. One night I was at my then girlfriend's place spending the night. We lay in bed together and she wanted to play music on a cassette tape. This music was called Ram Das Guru. It was supposed to be new age spiritual music. It was a woman singing with a harp accompaniment. It was supposed to be uplifting, but as we listened, I felt sick and as a sense of utter dread. I closed my eyes and I had a vision of myself as a child in pajamas laying in bed and people on my mother's side of the family standing over me. In the vision, I had just died. The vision was me as a soul floating above and away from my body watching the scene. As a child, I had been sickly and had to be hospitalized a few times for asthma. I opened my eyes and still saw the vision. I told my girlfriend at the time about the vision and that the music had deeply disturbed me. The next day, I arrived back at my apartment and my mother had left a message on my answering machine to call her. I did, and she informed me that my Aunt Terry, who herself had struggled with illness, had died that night. I immediately remembered the vision of the previous night and knew that I had somehow seen her death. I don't know if she actually sent the vision. My intuition tells me it came from the connection that I have to my mother's side of the family, which has always been strong, and as I look back on it, deeply spiritual. Somehow I looked through the normal barriers and I saw her die. Later that day, I shared this with my girlfriend. We talked about it and we agreed, and I still believe that I had been involved in a spiritual event. I don't know if it was the web of weird, but I know that I am connected to my maternal family in a way I can only describe as a web of soul tethers. When I think of the Desir, I tend to think of my maternal grandmother and my Aunt Terry and all the women on my mother's side of the family who have passed on. The next day I was at my girlfriend's place again. I was worried because I was afraid my 2 kittens I had at my place would fall into the toilet bowl somehow, and then I should have to close the lid before I left, but I did not. I remember talking to my girlfriend about this. The next morning when I went home, I immediately went to the bathroom. The toilet lid was closed, and the toilet brush was sitting dead center, perfectly aligned on the toilet lid. This was not something I would have ever done. When I saw it, I knew it was my Aunt Terry who had placed the brush on the lid. She was letting me know that she was watching out for me. It was this incident that confirmed absolutely my belief in souls, the afterlife, and the soul of a dead person may still somehow present in Midgard for a time, and might even be able to physically act upon it. This is the story of my Aesir. Thank you for letting me share this story. It has been a long time since I have thought about this. Hail the Aesir, hail the folk, hail the AFA. I love and miss you, Aunt Terry. Hail, Aunt Terry, and thank you. Thank you, Waylon, for sharing that. And then we do have a question from the chat, and it comes from Corey. How do you fix bad energy in a house? Let's start off with Katie. Katie, how do you fix bad energy in a house? I know we talked a little bit about it, but go ahead.
I just realized I wasn't unmuted. Sorry about that, guys. Was I unmuted the whole time my kid was up here? Okay, good. All right. Because I could believe I would. Well, no, Nick, you would have muted me. All right. So a lot of what I said before, we make a big point of being aware and recognizing our house Vatir, and our land Vatir. Part of twice every year. I mean, obviously more often, but twice a year, usually once during Yule and around midsummer, we make a point of kind of ritualizing going out onto our property and cleaning up. We have a fenced-in yard that usually stays pretty clean, but we also have a huge field next to our house that is our property, and we find a lot of trash out there because people, we live on a main road, so people throw trash out, and a lot of high school kids and middle school kids walk past our house every day because we live right by the school, so we get a lot of trash out there, and we pick it up periodically, but twice a year we make a point of going out there and keeping it clean. So really, I think stewardship of your house and your property is a huge thing because while obviously we bought our house, we own our house, it's our house, but also it's not our house. The land Vatir live here, the house Vatir live here, so we share the house with others. So it's important to make sure we take care of them. Like I said before, I use sage. I'm also a big fan of using water. In one property that I lived in that I got super negative vibes off of, and sage wasn't really cutting it by itself. I may or may not have physically carved runes into the walls in places where people wouldn't see them, and I may or may not have used blood in some ways. I do not really recommend people use blood during things like that unless they know what they're doing, because it can be very dangerous. Not because I think you're gonna cut yourself or whatever. Like, you can literally prick your finger with a needle and get blood. So it's a very useful and very powerful tool, but it's also a dangerous one because magic can go wrong if you don't know what you're doing. But yeah, carving runes into things, if you're not comfortable carving them into your wall because like maybe you don't own the property, or you don't have to worry about repairing it later. And I mean, like, literally tiny little runes carved up into a corner someplace behind a painting or a picture that nobody's gonna see. You can find a rune and hang it on your wall if you need to. Things like that. I really do believe there's almost no wrong answer to that question because everybody has their personal preferences about things. Brandy and I are very similar in a lot of ways. I use water for a lot of my rituals. I think water is like the most basic, most pure thing that you can use. Water is represented everywhere. It's the wells that are at the roots of Yggdrasil, water, the rain that falls and helps to heal the well heals the roots, whatever. There's just waters everywhere. We we live in water when we were in the wombs. I mean, amniotic fluid is, I don't know, really water, but like Brandy said before, sorry, I will sit here and contradict myself all night long, but water is super powerful and can be used very easily for lots of things. And I think it's very pure, and I think that it's a great thing for cleansing, and literally and figuratively, because you use water to clean your house. I hope, maybe with chemicals, maybe with not. I'm a big fan of vinegar. Vinegar is kind of a natural thing, and add that to water, and you'll kill everything. You don't need anything but vinegar and water. I am going. Sorry, I'm. I'm gonna stop talking now. My brain's kind of just looping, but I don't think there's a wrong answer on how you can clean your house. I think a lot of it is intention, and a lot of it is the energy you put into things, your intentions, and also consistency. If you want things and the energy in a house to be good, you have to work on it consistently. You can't just do it one time and walk away and expect for things to just magically be better. And I mean that because, like, if you're yelling, I use kids because I have kids. If you spend a lot of time yelling at your kids, it's not directly affecting your house. At least that is to say, like, you're not, punching holes into the walls, but you're yelling at your kids, and that's negative, and that energy will just over time, it will build up. So if you're always yelling at your children constantly all the time, you constantly are going to need to have to work on cleansing the energy of your house. So you need to work on consistently, if not cleansing your house, then you need to work on consistently acknowledging or recognizing that maybe your energy is a little negative, and finding a way to reel it in a little bit. And we've all been there.
Mm-hmm.
I certainly have my moments where I may not always be the kindest, most patient person in the whole wide world, and my kids bicker a lot, and it gets annoying, and they make a lot of really repetitive noises. And if there's anything in the world that's going to set me off fast, it's a repetitive noise that I just can't stand it. But I know that those are my triggers, and so I actively remind myself all the time, like, they're just kids. They're having fun. They're playing. Let them play. Yes, I know it's noisy. It's okay. Just let them do it. They're fighting with each other. Just let them fight. They need to learn how to figure it out on their own. So just actively reminding yourself. And like I said, I'm using children because I have them, and so I'm struggling with that on a regular basis. I love my children. I homeschool them. I'm with them all of the time. The reality is, patience is not always it's not always there, but like I said, the consistently reminding yourself, like, okay, it's okay. They're just playing. They're allowed to be noisy. Is it because they're actually doing something wrong, or is it just because you're not liking it? Because I don't want to be a selfish person who says my children are never allowed to do anything just because I don't like the sound. You know what I mean? I don't know. I said I was going to stop talking like 5 minutes ago, so I'm really going to stop right now.
What about you, Sheila? Do you guys have anything special that you do in your home to cleanse the energy? Is there any specific things that you do routinely for yourselves or for your home, or even in your cleaning process that might be related to spirituality?
Say I don't, because I'm not known for being really good about that, but you've really inspired me. And I have to say that ritually I use water too. I like using spring water if I can find it. There's actually a spring on the way into town that sometimes I use that with Thorgrid when I went to do last rites for Thorgrid in the hospital. I did not want to use anything commercial, so I stopped and got water there and did some anointing of runes, and kind of said my farewell to him. But besides that, I had an interesting thing happen to me. Last time I went to Ross Dress for Less, right? We all know that. I did clear across the country. As you get towards the checkout, they've got all the candies and everything and the water bottles. Well, I'm sure everybody here has seen it. They have Icelandic water. Have you seen that? We have it out here. And I've bought it before, but I always think, it's in a bottle, and is it really made in Iceland and the whole thing. As I was doing that, my sister and I were there together. The lady in front of me, she said, "Oh yes, Icelandic water." She said, "We just came back from Iceland. I know that's they bottle that there. That is really Icelandic water. It comes right off the glaciers." So it was just the timing was perfect, and so we bought up all the water that they had there. But yes, ritually, and I will do that, of course, with the diesel bloat that I'll be doing. I expect to use water mostly in that, and I do water. You can't go wrong with that, especially for anything feminine, and for the senior. What was I going to say? I'm not really sure. But anyway, I love your stories. You've inspired me. That's all I can say. I have nothing to add about cleaning a house except I need to do it. Thank you for telling me how and do it the right way. The only other thing I would say, that part of the around the home, and you talk about making a really comfortable place, a place with order, settled, all those things we want, feels well taken care of. And my husband, everybody knows that, you've seen us do it, is we do go out on our deck in the morning together, and we do what we now call the Valkyrie's prayer, from the Sigdrifamal. Hail to the day, hail to the sons a day is what we do. And we also, as people have seen us, we do a rune galder at the very end, Stala galder, with 2 runes, with Awaz and Gebo. We do Gebo, then Awaz. And that is kind of our bonding to the day, that sending intentions to the day, and giving purpose, making sure that we commit to good things. The healing hands, and I've said this before, means so much to me. I think we all have opportunities to help others heal. And whether it's in words or whether it's in actions, like holding a door open for someone, smiling, or saying thank you, those little things still make a difference, because you have truly added something to someone's life. I know what I was going to say. And going back to the whole idea of ritual, and people say, I don't know how to do bloat. Again, it's the intention that matters. And if you don't have mead, and a lot of people don't have mead, you can use something else, but you can also use water if that is what you have. And that is part of what you're gifting with your words and your heart to whichever of the Aesir that you are honoring. That is okay, and don't hold back because you don't have all the paraphernalia to do blood. You don't have a hammer, and you don't have incense, and you don't have candles. You don't need that. It's here. It's in the heart. It is, but again, it's gifting. So make sure that you are offering your troth to that particular deity that you want to cherish, love, honor. And then, if you are worthy, and ask if you need some kind of thing that, again, shouldn't just be self-centered. It should be something that makes your life better, to build a better world around you. That is what I would say. So just added a little bit about, started with water.
A comment. There's a comment in the chat from Rachel that says the McNallans do not wake up in the morning and choose violence. So good on the McNallans. Good on the McNallans. All right. And then as far as how do I clear, cleanse, clean spiritually the houses, I'm not going to go on a very, very long rant through Prairie Dog Town about mirrors, but I'm going to mention the mirrors. We're not going to go there. That's a whole episode on its own, right? Katie's like, yes. She loves it when I rant about the mirrors. But for me, a very, very huge part of my spiritual cleaning is not only cleaning the mirrors, but sealing them mirrors off. I am superstitious about mirrors, to the point that if I walk into your home, and I don't know if you guys are going to remember or not, but I know people that had floor to ceiling mirrors, like the squares. I won't stay at your house. I will not. I'm not comfortable in a room full of mirrors. Like the House of Mirrors when I was a kid, there's no way. I've been to one. I think I had a nervous breakdown in the middle, and my parents had to come pull me out of the House of Mirrors. Like I can't do it. It's a massive phobia that I have. And the more research I've done about the magical properties of mirrors, the folklore around mirrors, the more I understand that they are more than just reflections. And no, it's not just mirrors. When we're walking down a street, if there's a reflection on like the store mirrors, you won't see me catching a glimpse of myself in that store mirror. I mean, it's kind of bad, but I have a very specific order on which I clean things. I have taken every mirror in every house that I've ever owned and downsized it to the most absolute level possible. I hate mirrors. So I have a lot of stuff about, cleansing, protecting the mirrors. I also use wind chimes as a deterrent. Wind chimes are really awesome. Tuning forks, if you cleanse with sound. If you don't like the great big bang, bang, bang of my pots and pans, tuning forks. Tuning forks are a thing. Take a look at it, do the research on it. Cleansing with sound is real. Energetic force between sound is real. That is why you are spiritually, emotionally, and mentally moved by music. Right?
And Galder.
And Galder. Yep. Absolutely. Other things that I do, like I said, I use rosemary a lot. Rosemary, lavender, cedar. You can steep it like a tea almost and put it in your water. It has cleansing properties, right? You can do all kinds of things to do that, whether, and I'm going to kind of answer another question while we're talking about that, because we did have another question that came from, let me get to it. I'm so sorry. That came from Primal Might Kindred. Sheila's got tuning forks. Outstanding.
I've had them in a box. I was going to I had two of them. And here they serve a purpose. I'm not going to get rid of them now.
Yeah.
Not very strong, but nice then. Very nice tune.
Mm-hmm.
Tone.
Primal Might Kindred had asked, does the AFA have a specific ritual to sanctify new ritual items? The Narayana Society says to use smoke, but I haven't looked deeper into it. Yeah, I guess smoke is fine. But traditionally, the Proto-Indo-Europeans cleanse with fire. We cleanse with fire. I'm not saying throw your things into the fire and burn them to a torch. That's not what I mean. A lot of the Hoffs use fire in different ways. Odin's Hoff has this big, beautiful outdoor fire, right? They have this big, beautiful, neat fire. Baldur's Hoff, when you walk through into the sanctuary or into the Vey before ritual, you run your hand over a candle, the candle of sin. And that is that switch from the mundane to the sacred. That is the self-cleansing before you go to ritual. The Proto-Indo-Europeans typically cleanse with fire. But all of each Gothi and each Githia are going to have their own little way of how they like to do things, what works with them, what they've done through the years, what they have found works as the best conduits for the blessings. I like to use fire. I will cleanse or use incense as an offering in and around the tool. Like if it's a horn, I'll go inside the horn, around the horn. But that incense isn't actually my cleansing tool. That incense is an offering given for the blessing. I'm not going to go to the gods or to the ancestors and say, make this special. I'm going to give them something first. I'm giving them a piece of myself, my time, my energy, my might, and then I'm giving that through the smoke. So one thing that I self is part of the gift, but it's not the whole gift. I'm giving a piece of myself to the gods when I do that. That's what you'll see me whispering as I'm going through. I'm whispering prayers, and I'm giving the offerings of myself and my servitude to the Aesir. Other things that I do at Baldershof is I actually have sacred dirt. Girls, the ladies have heard me talk about sacred dirt before. I'm not going to get up and get my jar of sacred dirt, but my sacred dirt includes dirt from the homes that I've lived in, where very, very good, wonderful, happy memories have taken place. Dirt from the graves of my ancestors. Dirt from the hofs that I visit. I might, if you ever see me with a little bottle and I'm snatching up your dirt, I'll fight you for it. Dirt from Sigerheim. I have dirt from Sigerheim. Dirt from Baldershof, you know. So when I bless things at Baldershof, I will actually use soil from Baldershof as a sacred blessing. You know, it's sacred ground. Therefore, it is a sacred dirt. That could be a whole nother story about the sacred dirt. Don't let me fall down the prairie dog trail, okay? But I will use that. I will also use water. You know, water is a cleanser, especially if I'm doing something where I'm blessing something for a woman. I will often use mead or water. So I definitely feel a lot of feminine energy towards that. So that is what I like to use. And then let's go to another story. Let's see, Sheila, would you be able to scroll through and find Monk's story and read that to us, please?
I will. Here we go. Let's start.
It involves skipping a few, but he is number 6.
Yeah. Okay. Walked in the Hof and looked. Yeah, this is his. Monk. Okay. This is Monk, who is one of our regulars on here and is there tonight. We just pulled in and set up to camp and prepare for my wife's funeral. There wasn't a lot of talking and things were a little depressing. However, Paul and I got a little mood boost just by being at Odenshof. Yeah, it was about 2:30 a.m., give or take, and I went into the Hof to pay my respects to the All-Father. The kitchen light was on and the door unlocked, so I went right in. It was quiet. I walked through the Hof and looked around, went to the men's room and washed my face and hands, walked out and stood before Odin. And what he's talking about is our big Odin mural in the hall. I stood at attention with my head bowed, bearing the full weight of Farron's death. I looked up and faced Odin, hands raised, and hailed him. Hail Odin, hail the Aesir, hail my ancestors. I asked Odin to look after my wife and for my ancestors to welcome her. It really hit me hard that she was gone. So many unspoken words, so much unfinished dreams. She was so young. I thanked the gods for all they had done for me and turned to leave. And I went and washed my face again. And when I came out of the restroom, I was drawn to the ancestors' table and remembered I had placed her picture there. I picked up her picture and looked at it, kissed her face, and placed it back on the table and noticed a 3x5 card with some words written in another language. For some reason, I read the card out loud and it said, Vikala Pavora Bairn, Vikala Pavora, well, Main. We call it before our sister, our folk come hem, folk come hem. It's our Swedish chant we do. I felt inspired to read it louder, so I did 2 more times, place the card back on the altar. From the silence, the Hof came alive with disembodied voices and shadows moving in my peripheral vision, whispers and talking all around me. I gave the altar a small bow and walked into the lounge area. As I went through the double doors, there stood my wife. I stopped in shock. She was so beautiful, all smiles. I blinked, and as I was standing there like an idiot, no words, just staring, I heard a loud noise in the kitchen and turned. There was nothing. I looked back, and she was gone. Tears streaming down my face, I just stood there for what seemed like forever. I whispered, "Come back," and said the words of the very first line of the last letter I'd written her right after she passed. My heart died with your last breath. The Hoff was now silent, and the air was heavy. I'm not sure how long I stood there. I found myself and my truck still dazed. That's the end. She is missed. Thank you, Monk. That's more details than I knew of that story. I really appreciate it, and I'm honored to have read it for you.
That's really beautiful.
Yeah, it really was. Okay.
This is maybe a little more sounding. Oh, she made it back. Hi, Brandy.
She's back.
I was going to say this might sound a little bit morbid, but in a lot of ways, I think, Monk, that you are very lucky that you were able to have that experience, because so many people don't have the opportunity to really get that goodbye. Does that make sense? I don't know, because that seemed like you really had that experience, and I would imagine it would make it not easier. Nothing will ever make losing her easier, but certainly maybe closure a little bit. I don't know. I lost my words. Sorry. I was brain dead to begin with, but it just gets worse as time goes on. I mean, literally, because it's getting late.
It is. But yes, Monk, that was a beautiful story. Thank you so much for sharing. And we do have another question, and then we'll do another story. It's Vargr. Do you think there are people who weaken or strengthen the veil with their presence? I've met people hypersensitive to this stuff and people who create a sort of dead zone to the supernatural. Do I think that they affect the veil physically? No. Do I think the veil affects them differently? Yes. Do some people have the ability to see further beyond the veil, or hear beyond the veil, or feel beyond the veil stronger than others? Yes. I believe it is a talent. One of the things I also believe with all talents is that it will improve if you exercise it. However, do so at your own risk, do so with knowledge, do so with confidence. And, like Katie said earlier, don't play with things. Number one is childish and immature. We've all done it. I've done it. Katie's done it, right? And we will be the first ones to tell you it's childish, it's immature, and it's disrespectful. It's disrespectful to the dead to play with it. Some of us learn the hard way. Some of us experience things and we don't want to do it again. Some of us mature over time and our talent shifts over time. Do not welcome things, challenge things, or invite things, or try to communicate with things that you are not prepared for. The more you invite energy, the more you will receive energy. Okay, it's kind of like, okay, so this is a poor analogy and I apologize, but it's a couple hours past my bedtime, so we're going to use with what we got here, okay? Those little styrofoam peanuts for shipping, but the really, really tiny ones, like what's inside of a beanbag, right? And if you tear it open and you get some on your hands, like more will be attracted to it because of the static electricity. And then the next thing you know, you can't get rid of the stupid little styrofoam things. That's what playing with things will get you. That's where experimenting with things you shouldn't be messing with will get you. That's where challenging things to be immature and show your might will get you. Treat everything respectfully. Don't, when you're going to a cemetery, for instance, and you're, bringing a spirit box, or you're out trying to communicate, it's not just the dead. That is somebody's grandfather. That is somebody's uncle. That is somebody's wife. That is somebody's child. That is not just a spirit. That's somebody's someone. And you had better show them the same respect that you would show your own. And I think people forget to do that. They think it's a game. They think it's a hobby. That's somebody's somebody. So tread with respect. That is my biggest recommendation there. All right. And I'm going to read the next story. Let me get to it here. I apologize. This one is from Rachel. And she says, this happened the morning of October 7th. I had stayed up too late the night before. Rising with my alarm was proving to be quite difficult. While trying to pull myself from the dream world, I felt a gentle touch on my hand. I acknowledged it and brushed at my hand, still mostly asleep. I felt a touch in my hair. To me, that was confirmation of someone trying to get my attention and helping to pull me awake. I lay in bed a bit longer, coming to, and then I felt a gentle touch on my foot. I thank whoever was there to help me wake up. That is awesome. That is awesome. Okay. I think that's the thing. I personally feel that that's a thing. Because I've kind of experienced something a little bit myself. For anybody who knows me, I drive in a similar fashion to the law speaker. And I too will accept my time tax, also known as speeding tickets, when I get caught. We call it the time tax, right? I have a lead foot. I like to drive way faster than I should. And for some reason, cruise control is all like fairy dust and glitter, and it's not real. It's not real. So I tend to drive a little bit faster than I should, which has gotten me into trouble more than once. I have wrecked vehicles, things like that. After my grandparents passed away, I would be driving down the road like I normally would, and my hands would itch. I'd get like itchy hands. I'd be like, what is going on? It would catch my attention, and I would look down at the speedometer, and I would be like, oh, I'm doing 90. Let's not do that today. And I would slow down. And I'm not even joking about this. As soon as I realized what was going on, and I was like, oh, I'm doing 90, I would slow down. There'd be a deer. Or a car would pull out in front of me. And it was like somebody was telling me, stop being an idiot. And like, if you look at your hands, my hands were like right at the speedometer. So I would naturally put my hands back and my eyes were at the speedometer. And to this day, it still happens. To this day, I get that tingling in my hands and I'm like, oh, something's coming. But instead of me going, what is that? I'm just like, I need to slow down and pay attention. And I think it has saved me more than once. So yeah, I think that's a thing. All right. Katie, do you have access to any of the stories that you can see? Can you see any of them?
I can only see like the last half of the last story that's posted in the.
Oh, okay.
So no, I don't have them.
Sheila, would you be able to read Austin's story? I think you're muted though.
Ooh, okay, Nick fixed it. Hello, Witan Brandy. I don't have any spooky ghost stories. The closest thing to paranormal activity that happened to me was an evil stuffed Easter bunny doll moving on its own. But I was 2 or 3 years old at the time and probably hallucinating. Anyway, my question is, what is Winter Nights? What makes it important? And why do we celebrate it? Thank you for all you do. That's sweet, Austin.
Yeah. So Austin, I can relate. My grandmother went to Mexico on vacation, and she brought everybody back the coolest souvenirs and the coolest gifts, except for me. She didn't bring me something nice. She brought me like a little brown man in a sombrero that was a puppet, with the strings that moved around. And my mom thought it was the coolest thing in the world to hang this thing in the corner of my bedroom. And it moved all the time. And I would take it down and I would throw it in the closet. And she would find it. Oh, goodness, how did this turn up in the closet? She'd hang it back up. She'd hang it back up. I finally threw it in the canal. I couldn't take it anymore. I could not take that spooky little man. Nope, can't do it. Nope, traumatized me for life. Every time I hear a mariachi band now, I'm just like, got the shudders. All right, so I'm going to give this one to Githia McNallen. Could you explain to us what is Winter Nights, what makes it important, and why do we celebrate?
Winter Nights is that time of year that we have recognized as Eurofolk when the veil is thin, and that means the ability to connect with those through the veil who have passed. It's easier, and it makes it a wonderful time for us to simply remember those who have passed, our ancestors. Traditionally, Winter Nights has always been for the Disir, for those, the ladies of our lines, all of our mothers, right? But we also have the fathers. And this year, with Veternite or Veterniter, we're changing it to basically a more ancestral look at both fathers and mothers. But it still does the same thing. We are honoring them. We are communicating with them. What we typically will do in ritual is have everybody be thinking about a particular ancestor, and in the D-sublot, it would be one of the mothers, and something you would like to say to them. That's what I always do. What would you like to say? What kind of an answer? What kind of guidance would you like? And something that I think, Katie, I think you are the one with the washing of the hands, right? Yes. So we do that, and it's just so beautiful because it reminds us all, especially the men, that they are entering into a sacred space that is the place of the mothers. The feminine energy is there. And they come in very respectfully and are expected, as you would when you go to grandma's house, or great grandma or great aunt, that you bring your best manners and you look nice and clean and all that. And so we actually do basically a washing of our hands. And that is the preparation of stepping in through the threshold of grandma's house or our mother's house. And the ritual is to help us each connect to ancestors, to learn from them, to let them know that they're still loved, that they still matter. And so we do the same, of course, with our fathers as we do our mothers. The Celts do what is Halloween is the name for it is Samhain. If you know Sierra, she does Samhain. That's how it's spelled, but it's actually pronounced Samhain. And then, as we know, that there are people who in I guess the Catholic tradition, especially the Latino type people, do a lot of All Souls Day, right? And they do all their altars. We have that in our own town where people will take one of our big halls and people will set up their altars. Well, we of course can do the same thing. We need to all have a place for our ancestors where we can look upon them, light a candle to them, thank them, and ask them to bless the families. Well, other people do that too. And they also choose the same time of year, which is interesting. So it kind of coalesces. There's something about this time of year, the end of or the middle of fall. We've gone through the autumnal equinox, and we're just past that, and halfway to Yule. So it's one of those 8 points of the wheel. And but it is a very special time. And you light the candles, you have the fire, you have the hot beverage. It makes the ambiance that comes this time of year is perfect for communing with our ancestors on the other side. And we want you to do that. And if you can do it by doing a special ritual to your ancestors, yeah, try it this year. If this is your first time, you don't need us to do that for you. Just take the time and think about them, look at their pictures, put out special things that they would have liked, maybe make a special dinner, and then do it an ancestor's plate at dinner time. for the Disa bloat or for the Alfar bloat. And the Alfar is the elves, right? The light elves. And Frey is seen as, or Freyr is seen as basically the leader, the guardian of the Alfar, the fathers. And Freya, as Vanadis, does the same for the Disir. And again, somebody mentioned the poem October Women, which we have that recorded, and that's one that my husband wrote many years ago, and I've heard it 100 times, and I love it every time. It's really special to me. It captures the essence of what this time of year is when we're going into the darkness. We're prepping for that. And we do it internally, we do it externally in our lives. How are we going to plan for the winter, for the unexpected things that happen with weather and other mishaps that can happen, and be prepared, and but also mentally be ready to go into the darkness of winter and use that as a time of not just vegetating, but taking the time to learn, to perceive more about yourself, to be ready to come out in springtime, having gained so much wisdom that you're going to be like a seed that's ready to sprout and grow again. That is what winter does. It's our time of peace and pleasure, and yes, we've got you, Will, and all that. I don't know. Anybody else have things to answer, add to winter nights?
How about you, Githia?
Sorry. So I'm not gonna go. I'm gonna try not to go crazy. So Winter Nights is one of our 3 historically attested to festivals. It's written in I think it was Heimskringla, and well, it's mentioned in Heimskringla, and that with Yule and with Sigarblot, which historically was usually celebrated in May around the same time as Sumermal, because that was when they were getting ready to go out a Viking and all that stuff. So Winter Nights is one of the ones that we actually know historically our ancestors celebrated, and we also know that they had a day. Every once in a while I hear feedback and it startles me. I lost my train of thought. I'm sorry. Okay, so they had a different calendar than we did. Our ancestors, most of us already know this stuff. They had 2 seasons, not 4. So when we say Winter's Nights, Vader not, it's already well into winter for our ancestors. And this is the festival I guess it's kind of the beginning of their winter. It's the beginning of their winter. It's still fall for us. It's a little different, but this is when things are starting to get darker. The dark part of the year is beginning. They have their last big festival until Yule. It's probably the last time they're going to be able to really travel to see people who don't live in their immediate communities, which sometimes is just their own household, because if you lived on a farm in the middle of nowhere, you probably weren't traveling the 5 miles to your nearest neighbor in the middle of winter. So this is Winter Nights was often seen as when we say a festival, we mean that it was usually celebrated over the course of more than a single day. It was usually 2 or 3 days to 2 weeks. We know that meant that there was going to be feasting, there was going to be probably some drunken rowdiness at times. There's definitely going to be some storytelling, but it happened over the course of time, because this was really, like I said, one of their big 3 main festivals that they celebrated over the course of the year. So Winter Nights is important for us because, I mean, we're Asatru. We're trying to be Asatru, so we should celebrate Asatru holidays, obviously. And this is one of the ones that we know was a big deal for our ancestors. It was a time when they started to reflect on the dying world, which would probably mean they were reflecting on their ancestors who had come before them and all the hard things that they had to do in order to survive, for them to be there as they are now, and things like that. So that's really the only thing I wanted to add, because I actually remember that much about Winter Nights. So, ooh. Yeah, that's it. Just historical context. I remember the other thing was I believe that Winter Nights was often supposed to be like the first or second full moon after a certain point. I actually don't remember exactly now that I'm trying to remember, but it wasn't really, it was more about the lunar cycle. So where winter nights fell over the course of the year had to do with when the first something or other after the full moon or something like that. Or the first full moon after the solstice. There's the equinox. I don't remember. But so we know it was in October. It was never the same time in October because depending on when the lunar cycles landed and stuff like that. But that was literally my last thing. Not literally, actually. It was actually my last thing.
Thank you, ma'am. We have a donation from Gilbert for $150 to beautify Thorshoff. Thank you, Gilbert. We appreciate that very much. And Gilbert, thank you for joining our VNS pregame calls. For those of you who do not know that these are a thing, every Wednesday night at 7 p.m. Central, there is what we call the Victory Never Sleeps pregame show. And it is basically a call just to hang out and get to know your folk. We have people from every single district in the AFA that come to this call. It is your chance to hang out. You might hear a very deep philosophical conversation. We might talk about an Edda. We might complain about the days when we were in the military. We might talk about why ham is greater than turkey. We might talk about which mustard is best. We also might talk about which creamer goes best with which coffee, which goes best with which alcohol for your morning Sunday coffee. You never know what you're going to get on a VNS pregame call. It might be something super serious. It might be something super awesome. You just never know. So join us for those. And those are on Wednesdays at 7. Also, there is a service that we have now, and it is an AFA texting service. If you are interested in VNS updates, updates on Days of Remembrance, if you're looking for something spiritual every day, there's a daily Asatru. If you're looking for the latest and greatest AFA news, holiday information, you name it, we've got it. Reminders about moots in your state, reminders about information for your district. That texting service is free and available. And I don't know if Nick has there we go. Reach out to Sierra. Sierra has all of the cool information on how to get signed up for that free service. And you sign up for what you want to receive messages for. So that is an amazing thing. It'll remind you, you can just sign up for whatever state you want and you get moot reminders for that, all of the cool things. So we're really enjoying that. All right, I've got one more story to read tonight, folks, and that is going to be from Nick. Back in high school, our friend group was big on spooky. Same friend, same. We'd always been piling up 5, 6, 7, 10 deep in our buddy's SUV just to go driving real late at night. Same friend. 2 a.m. haunt rides were a common thing. Did we go to school together? I don't think so. All right. Whether we were going exploring in abandoned buildings, hanging out in old graveyards, exploring the back roads, midnight walks through the woods, all that. But the big one was this one road in town that we all visited all the time. It was a back road off a back road, and everybody knew it was apparently haunted. We'd done this trip down the road many a night, but this night was special. So the road you go down as turn onto it, there's a field on either side for a couple 100 yards. Then you get to a tree line and you go deep into the woods. This night, I don't know what it was. But we're creeping down the road. I think 7, 8 of us in a vehicle. Sounds familiar. As soon as we start approaching the wood line, standing there, 2 of them on each side of the road, right at the woods, 10, 15, 20-foot tall beings. I don't know, giants, Jotuns, trolls. I almost think the Ents from Lord of the Rings. That would be awesome. They were looking right at us as we approached. Every single one of us saw them. The girls were freaking out. The guys were freaking out. We kept driving right in between them. Their heads turned as they drove to follow us. Their heads turned as we drove to follow us. They let us pass. Still, that wasn't the end of the night. These woods were more than creepy. I never found proof, but there's a graveyard in these woods. It's easy to find. We always heard it was an old witch's graveyard. There's county stories about old-timey witches doing their black magics, he's got in quotes, out in these woods. And apparently the same site they did ritual decades. A century later, KKK took up shop and held their thing in the same spot. Now that was all off in the woods, but story tells that those same witches were buried in the graveyard. Ooh. We spent a lot of time there over the years, sometimes during the day, sometimes at night, hanging out, just being teenagers. We were always respectful of those who now live there, though. We felt at home. Well, that night with those guardians of the woods, as we're driving down, a few of us were taking pictures out the windows. Near every one of them, an orb, a shape, a mark on the picture, floating, sometimes the same super specific, unique shape on people's cameras, taking pictures out different windows, different sides of the vehicle. Time passed. We made it to the graveyard. It was a crazy night, and it didn't stop. We were all on edge, but we got to our happy place, our goth place, or whatever you want to call it. We started relaxing. I don't know if it was chanting or drumming or screaming or crying, but a rhythmic noise started in the air. It was close, off in the woods. We could all hear it. It got louder, but after all that was that night, we didn't wait around. Don't blame you. We all knew the road continued on, and you could circle back to the main road if you went deeper in, but we did in the past. We always went out the way we came in. Not that night. I don't know if those guardians let us pass for real, or whoa. I don't know if they were trapping us in, keeping us there, but we weren't going to find out. We went out the long way, the back way, and all was quiet. It was some time before we went back. Some rich guy from out of town bought those fields up from the road. They're a factory now. I wonder what they've since disturbed. I wonder how those souls and spirits get on now. I might go back there one day, to the graveyard, to that wood, to that special place. If you do, let me know. That sounds like an interesting drive. So, okay. You're not the first person to see something big and strange that you don't know quite what it was on the side of the road. Okay. At this point, I wish that my BFF wasn't probably asleep, because I would text her, because she actually had a name for it. And for the life of me, I cannot remember what she called them. But they were spirits that would feed on flesh of the dead. And they almost look like a Sasquatch type thing. And you could find them like by roadkill, things like that. So sometimes you'll see something out of the corner of your eye when you pass, and it's, feeding on the flesh of the dead. And there was something that she called it, and I cannot remember what story she got it from. I will hopefully have that information for you.
Considering where y'all live, that's probably, is it Wendigo?
Yeah, no. I'll have to ask her. I'm going to have to ask her.
I don't know, but I think I was the crazy one that night, but there was like 7 or 8 of us in that vehicle. We all damn saw all the damn stuff.
That's a thing. So, I mean, and it's gone in the blink of an eye. Like this thing that she talks about, I've caught them out of the corner of my eye, but when you look hard, there's nothing there, but you swear there was something there with that roadkill or whatever that was. And then you look straight at it and it's gone. And I will have that for you guys on Fit the Brandy. I will get in touch with her. I don't want to bother her this time of night, but I will find that. But yeah, that's a thing, man. All right. Well, that is all of our stories for tonight, unless anybody put anything else in the comments or asked any other questions. It doesn't look like they did. So that being said, remember, we're doing a drawing. I'm going to send you something that I ate 10 of right before we got on this call, because I just needed to, eat my feelings, because I'm on VNS and I get nervous. So I had to eat my special snacks. So take it away, Nick. Who's going to win the super secret snacks that I'm going to mail them tomorrow? See what happens. Spin the wheel. Austin, you're going to win the special snacks. I know where you live, friend. I will get that in the mail to you tomorrow. You might like them, you might hate them. I don't care. I love them. But just remember, I'm sacrificing a box of my special snacks that I wait all year for just because I appreciate your story. So, yeah. And don't tell anybody else. Don't tell anybody else because I want you guys to submit your stories for a Fifth of Brandy Part 2 coming up the last Wednesday in October. We would like to hear about your ancestor visits. We would like to hear your spooky, scary stories, your paranormal visits, your strange activities. Tell us about your favorite thing that goes bump in the night. Are you a fan of will-o-wisps? Do you know what the Kelpies are? Is there a favorite story from folklore that you want us to talk about? Tell us that story. We will share it live on the last Wednesday of the month. So get those stories submitted. If not, you're just going to have to listen to us fall down the rabbit holes. And who knows where we might end up. So it's hard to say. All right, guys. Katie, can you remind us one more time about when Winter Night is, how we can get tickets, and who to contact for information?
Sure. Winter Nights begins on Friday. So not tomorrow, the day after. You can find tickets online at runestone.org at the store. Nick is super efficient and already has that up on the screen for you. And what was the other thing? Oh, if you have any questions, you can reach out to me or my husband, Witan Erickson. Our emails are up on the website. Sorry, guys. It's almost midnight. I was supposed to,
on the road, Katie.
well, yeah, we were supposed to leave around 10, but it looks like we're probably going to be leaving around midnight instead. I don't know, at this rate, we might just get a couple hours of sleep and leave at like 4 in the morning instead. We'll see. But,
Well,
yeah,
we
this weekend, it's
we
going to be
appreciate
great.
you being here and hanging out with us, Katie. We really do. So I want to thank Githia Erickson. I want to thank Githia McNallen. Thanks for hanging out with me. Thanks for reading the stories. Thanks for telling me your stories. Really do appreciate it, you guys.
We're talking about some of my favorite stuff. I couldn't miss it.
Well, you know what? Just for giggles, let's add some divination to our Wednesday Fifth of Brandy. Ooh, gonna be a long one. I'll bring some tea.
I like that stuff too. Ooh, tea.
Right.
We should all make sure all of our Giddias have tea. We should all make sure we have tea.
Absolutely.
We have like a virtual tea party.
Tea party. The last
I'll
one.
even raise my pinky when I'm drinking.
Yeah, we'll be fancy.
Maybe I'll wear a hat. Who knows?
Right?
I don't actually own any fancy hats, so probably
You need to
not.
get one. You need to get a fancy hat.
I mean, I reckon Ron's wife probably has a few you might be able to borrow.
Absolutely.
I'm lucky I can manage to brush my hair. What makes you think I'm going to get a hat? No, I'm just kidding. Sort of.
I appreciate you guys hanging out with me tonight. I appreciate all the folk for sticking by, sticking in here, being in the chat. Appreciate you for the likes and for the subscriptions. Send me your stories. So next time, guys, same time, same place, next Wednesday. Hail the gods, hail the folk, hail the AFA, and remember, victory never sleeps. Good night, everybody.
Good night, everyone.